I've just been writing down several lessons that I learned on the Camino. I'm also going back through my journal and rewriting some things, and I'm about a week and a half into it, so I've got a little more writing to do. Today's video is a little bit uncomfortable because when you're walking the Camino, the physical challenge is a given, and it was, as I said last time in Spanish, duro pero hermoso, hard but beautiful, como la vida, just like life. And though I walked with a lot of people along the way, there were great sections of time that I was by myself, which is the mental and the spiritual part of the Camino. It helps you to really take stock, evaluate. I was able to evaluate not all 69 years of my life, but at least the 65 years. Many of you don't know my story. I don't tell it very often, but there's something that happened to me while I was walking as I was reflecting all of this. My mother got pregnant by a married man in 1956 in northern Indiana. That was rather scandalous in those days. She ended up moving back home with my grandparents, where I spent the first 4 years of my life. My grandparents were wonderful, wonderful influences. My mother remarried Mr. Blake when I was a little over 4 years old. He would eventually become my father. But together, they lived a fairly chaotic life. Perhaps on the outside it seemed normal, but inside it was terrorizing at times. My father, when he was as nice and generous and kind a person as you'd ever want to encounter. But when his demons flared up, he was violent, unpredictable, and scary. And the problem is you had little warning of when that would happen. I'm not blaming anyone for it. It was a different time in a different era where people weren't particularly looking out for children and their best interests. So I've gotten to the point where I'm not angry with anyone for not intervening, but horrible things would happen. And during that time, I learned a secret of survival in that kind of a circumstance, and it was the power of focus. I could watch the clock and knew it'd be 5 hours before my mother got off work. How are we going to survive the next 5 hours? How are we going to get through the next 5 hours? Or at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, I get to go stay at my grandparents for the weekend. How do I get there? How do I keep my head down? How do I make peace? How do I just put one foot in front of the other? I used to tell people that's how we survive. We just put one foot in front of the other. And I developed some really crazy habits in those days, one of which was, for whatever reason, as a small child, before I would go to bed, I would lay out all of my clothes the night before. And this is something that I did since I was a small child, clear up until probably 3 months after I retired, when I realized if you're only going to wear shorts and a t-shirt, you really don't need to pick them out. A counselor told me one time the reason I did that in my little life, that was about the only thing I had any control over, was what I was going to wear. But in the midst of all that, as I said, I developed a great ability, I think now looking back, to just focus on the here and now and putting one foot in front of the other. My mother and father would divorce, and he would subsequently take his own life in a fit of rage, and it's all very sad. And so my mother was left with raising these children. She was an aide in a nursing home and made a minimal amount of money. She never learned how to drive. We didn't have a car, so we were dependent on friends, neighbors, relatives, public transportation, school bus. We never went on a vacation, only to see family. No one had ever gone to college nor ever thought about it. When I was a child, if you would have said go to college, you would have been just as well off to say to me, Ron, would you like to go visit the moon? It seemed that much of an impossibility. And in those days of focus, I wasn't an athlete, so I focused on the academic part of life. My grandmother and great-grandparents had come to faith in the Church of the Nazarene. My grandmother sicked the local Nazarene church on me and my family. And as a young child, having gone with her when I was in her home, I began going to church, gave my life to Christ, and Jesus and the church became the center of my life. It was an oasis in a dry desert. Besides finding Christ, the church did something else marvelous for me. It gave me direction, guideposts, and discipline. I began to hear about this college that we had called Olivet Nazarene and made up my mind that that's where I was going to go, and I did. And when I arrived on that campus, I was so green. I was culturally deprived. So the 4 years there were not only an education. I will always be forever grateful to Olivet. They opened the world to me. I made friends for a lifetime. I stood out like a sore thumb on the college campus. I mean, I didn't fit in. I carried a briefcase. Yes, I was one of those kinds of people because, again, I was focused on the academic and being the best that I could be. If you would have known me when I graduated from college and seminary, no one would have thought that I was going to be able to do anything. But I came up with this idea that I'm just going to trust the Lord, trust God, do the best I can, and put one foot in front of the other. And I was able to do wonderful things, but it's all because of the Lord and because of the people in that little church in Fort Wayne, Indiana that loved me implicitly. What in the world does that have to do with the Camino? There were a few times going up a mountain. I remember one day by myself, I looked down at my feet and was watching my feet. I was actually counting in increments of 25. If you can just take 25 more steps, you'll be that much closer until I got there. And I thought how much this has been a parable of my life, the Camino. It's been tough, but it's been beautiful. And you just focus on putting one foot in front of the other. About second from the last night, there were a group of primarily English speakers at a dinner, and we all just kind of sat together. And somebody asked this unusual question: what is your superpower? I was the last one to answer, and I thought, I don't have a superpower. I have no idea what a superpower I would possess. And then it just sort of came on me. I said to them, all of my life, I feel like I've underestimated myself and that people have underestimated me. But I just made sure that I trusted God, put my head down, did the work, and just kept putting one foot in front of the other. Now, I know there are some of you who didn't think that old Ron could walk 500 miles. And he really couldn't, except for the fact I just trust the Lord. And each day I didn't try to do any more than put one foot in front of the other and get to where I was designated. And on that path, it overwhelmed me one day. I actually began to sob. This Camino, Jesus, has been a parable of my life. Though it's been hard, though there were times I wondered if I was going to make it, the truth is you were always there with me. And not only were you always there with me, you always sent someone, a Sunday school teacher, a school teacher, a neighbor, a man from church, someone who would come along at just the right time to encourage me and help me. Now, hopefully the other videos won't be this long, but here's what I want to say, and this is predicated on everything that comes after this. You can do whatever you need to do today if you trust the Lord. Make up your mind you're going to serve Him, and just put one foot in front of the other, because the hours become days, the days become weeks, the weeks become months, and the months become year. And then someday you'll be my age looking back and say, how did I get here? I got here because Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. And however long the rest of the Camino, the way of my life is, I know that He is going to go with me and is going to see me through. That's why the Camino was such a challenging and wonderful experience for me. It reminded me of not just painful things. It reminded me of the wonderful blessings I have received. So I'm thanking God that He allowed me to go. I'm praying He makes me more sensitive. There's a verse that I found at a pilgrim mass that I was given that I'm going to make the life verse at the end of my life. I'll talk about that on the next, till the end of my life. I'll talk about that on the next video. But what I learned was, trust the Lord, put one foot in the front of the other, and you can get to where you are headed. God bless you, and have a great and wonderful week.